Now, 5 men have been charged over the gang rape and murder of a 23-year-old medical student in the Indian capital of Delhi last month. The horrific incident has prompted daily protests across India, demands for new anti-rape laws and a soul-searching about the country's attitude to women. If the 5 men are convicted, they could face the death penalty. Harry Smith reports.
They've been demonstrating every day since the attack took place. Today it was the turn of the lawyers to add their voices to the nationwide call for justice. While they were protesting outside the district court in Delhi, inside, the normally slow wheels of justice were beginning to turn with unaccustomed speed. Such is the national clamour for action that a fast-track hearing system has been established. The accused, some seen here just after their arrest, did not actually appear in court. Security and the risk of public disorder persuaded the authorities to charge them in their absence. This groundbreaking case has also led to a previously unheard-of declaration from the Indian Bar Association. Refusing to allow its members to defend the accused, it's thought the court will have to appoint lawyers for them.
The crime committed by them is very heinous, and as a mark of our respect to the girl victim and as a message that we want to send to the society, that we want our city to be safe, and such criminals will not get representation from our side. That is the thought process that has gone in the Bar Association's mind to take the present decision.
This is a case which has focused public fury about the treatment of women in India. Moves are now underway to force the Supreme Court to rule that any man accused of rape should be barred from holding public office. Campaigners say 260 men accused of sex crimes have been allowed to stand in elections in recent years. In an unrelated incident, this man, who's a leading figure in the ruling Congress party in the state of Assam, has been accused of raping a woman only yesterday. Local television showed these remarkable pictures of friends of his alleged victim subjecting him to public humiliation. The woman whose death sparked the current fury died after a horrific attack aboard this bus while it was being driven round the streets of Delhi. The 23-year-old woman has not been named in accordance with Indian law, but her father has now spoken out in favour of identifying her so that a new law protecting women could carry her name.
The law should definitely be named after the girl. The laws are made by the government, but all I ask is that the law be the toughest it can be. The death penalty is compulsory for a crime so grave. The attackers must be hanged. The courts must give these men the death penalty.
There is widespread support for the death penalty if the accused are found guilty. 5 of the 6 men are aged between 33 and 19. The authorities have still to decide if a 6th is too young at 17 to be charged with murder. The trial is expected to go ahead within the next few weeks, an unusually short time frame for such serious charges under a system not known for quick justice.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to Kiran Bedi, a former senior officer in the Indian Police Service, and I asked her whether she thought this shows India is fundamentally anti-women.
It's not anti-women, but it is unaccountable. Women are not a pressure group. It's not a pressure group. They don't agitate. And they're alone. They don't become a pressure.
But what has this said about Indian men, that it has taken the mass media, mass protests, violence on the streets in places to actually get their attention and to talk about changing the law?
It's finally the numbers which have worked. It's only when they took to the streets for days together and they suffered through the water cannons, the tear gas, the cane charges, and they stayed on, they stay put. They stay put, and in large numbers, young men and women. It's a youth, young men and women who both said, enough is enough, we've had enough. Because this was a gang rape which became symbolic of all that had been, of the broken down systems. It's a broken down governance. It was a result, if it was a volcanic outburst of a broken down system where they had lost trust in police,
You have backed the idea of naming a new law after the victim. Now, what would that new law be? How does the law actually need to change?
It needs a tougher. At the moment, the maximum punishment for rape is 7 years. I think it should be life imprisonment. And where there's a gang rape of this kind, of a horrendous kind, death penalties. Death penalty. It's people are demanding it. You can't just talk about humanity only. I think there's somebody called the rights of the victim. You can't only talk about rights of the accused.
Would you also accept that part of the problem is that a lot of the ordinary Indian policemen on the streets are pretty uneducated, they are pretty primitive in their attitudes, there's a lot of corruption and a lot of ignorance?
Well, the key is corruption. Corruption has eroded and rusted whatever we had. And for the last 2 years, people have been even on the streets against corruption. Corruption at the highest level. And India still doesn't have an independent ombudsman to get hold of these. We have a Central Bureau of Investigation, but which has also been politicized and which has been politically controlled.
You're talking about enormous societal changes. Do you think anything will in fact change in the near future?
Well, yes. They are up against, it is being compelled to change because the youth, it's the Arab Spring of the youth here. They stayed on the streets for the last 10 days.